first chance of the game. It's special. What a goal. Everybody talked about Victor Gyokeres.
Mikel Arteta sends a clear message on Victor Gyokeres amid Arsenal scrutiny. Even though Arsenal have been winning most, if not all of their games so far this season, there's been a topic of discussion among the fan base that is not exactly overwhelmingly positive. If anything, it is somewhat negative going around the problems that Victor Gyokeres is facing at Arsenal during his first season there. It is not as bad as people think, as Gyokeres is still adapting to the league and adjusting to a new playing style, which is also a big difference in itself, while also struggling with a few physical problems. Be that as it may, it is still expected that Gyokeres scores goals for the club he plays for, and right now, he only has 6 goals in 14 games. Those numbers could be worse, but for the price that Arsenal paid for Gyokeres, they should be better. Ahead of Arsenal's game against Everton, manager Mikel Arteta was asked about the problems that the Swedish star striker is facing in North London at the moment, and he gave a very detailed answer. He said, "I think the level of attention on him hasn't changed since he signed to today. That's normal. Everybody was so excited to bring a No.9 into the club. We did it. We played. We brought a player with an incredible scoring record that had to adapt to the league. He had no pre-season. The first few weeks were difficult because physically he wasn't in his best state, and he's a player that needs that, like any other player in this league, almost to perform at that level. Then he kicked on. I think he had a really good period and he got injured, and now he's back. But I saw a lot of positive things in the last 2 games that he's done. We need to continue to tweak and understand him a little bit better in certain situations, and he needs to do the same. But that's about time, and we have full support for him. At the end, you have to experience the scrutiny. You can imagine the global impact that you're going to have to deal with when you come to a big club and the expectations are as it is. But after you have to live it, and living it is always slightly different to your imagination. But he's doing it with a lot of desire. I think his energy level, his commitment, are absolutely top. And we are here to help him, because we've all been here. We all need time, there's always moments, and the strikers have moments. They score more goals, less goals, and we need to be there for him. Those are some really, really important quotes from Arteta, who can clearly see that Gyokeres is struggling with not just confidence, but also continuity at Arsenal, and it is good to see that he is there for the Swedish international. These are the statements that help struggling stars in finding their feet. Arteta acknowledged that Gyokeres is not at his best, but also explained the factors behind it, and how he and his team are there to support the player through this bad phase. Judging by how involved the Spaniard is in training, it wouldn't surprise me if Gyokeres and Arteta were in constant talks with each other about where the player is mentally, and it will undoubtedly help the player in the long run. Victor Gyokeres has not scored in his last 6 Arsenal appearances. To make matters worse, he has scored only 3 goals in his last 15 appearances across all competitions. It is fair to say that he hasn't scored nearly as many goals as Arsenal fans expected him to. When he arrived in the summer, Arsenal fans were sold a dream about a mask-wearing vigilante who scored goals for fun. He was portrayed as a beast, and Arsenal signed him as their own answer to Erling Haaland's goal-scoring exploits in the Premier League. However, that's not been the case. Nevertheless, Mikel Arteta remains in support of Victor Gyokeres. Speaking after the weekend's match against Wolves, whereby Arsenal won due to 2 own goals and a great performance from bukayo Saka, Mikel Arteta took the blame away from Victor Gyokeres. Mikel Arteta said that it is a combination of Victor Gyokeres doing more and his teammates giving him more opportunities to score goals. In the game against Wolves, it was clear to see that he wasn't receiving passes in dangerous positions and, if anything, he was forced to make chances for himself. In his own words, Arteta said, Victor Gyokeres was in a lot of really good positions and the ball didn't get into the area quick enough, sharp enough, or just with the precision that is required for a 9 to score the goal. Again, this seems like an argument that not many fans can argue with. At the end of the day, there is only so much blame Gyokeres can take for not scoring goals. If he is not viewed as a focal point or a target man by his teammates, then what is he to do? It would be much fairer to critique Gyokeres if he were squandering opportunities, but he's not being given enough opportunities to squander at this point. It is not the first time this week that Mikel Arteta has taken the pressure off Victor Gyokeres. Just recently, Arteta claimed that he was happy with all of Gyokeres' work outside of scoring goals, and that the goals would eventually come as a natural product of that hard work. Nevertheless, it is frustrating for fans to watch. Naturally, fans want to see the centre-forward on the scoresheet in most games, but the opposite is true for Gyokeres. If anything, it is a rarity to see him on the scoresheet. Victor Gyokeres has not been the smash hit that Arsenal fans would have hoped for. However, the signs have been encouraging. He's yet to hit the ground running in goal scoring, but every other element of his game has been nearly flawless. Gyokeres went from being the main target man at Sporting to being involved in a more intricate system at Arsenal. Therefore, he hasn't been as much of a central threat as he was in Portugal, but the way he's linked up with his Arsenal teammates has been positive. Mikel Arteta spoke at length about Victor Gyokeres' opening few months at Arsenal. Mostly, he was positive about how Gyokeres has adapted, even if he came with a few teething problems at first. At the core of Arteta's messaging, though, is that we need to start viewing Gyokeres through the lens of more than just the goals he's scoring. In his own words, Mikel Arteta said, Victor Gyokeres has to adapt to a different starting system. I think the two things have to emerge. I think we have to put the player in the best possible condition to explode and fulfill his potential. And there are certain things that, within the role, in the manner that we play, has to be fulfilled. And that's a combination of both. And then it's not only that. I think more importantly is the connections and the players around him at the end. Those interactions, that understanding, how it develops. And before the injury, I think he was in a great place. I think it took him a while at the beginning because, as you said, it's a different league, different demands, had no precision. And now he's just starting to get, again, some momentum. And the goals will come. And we're going to be very pleased with him. Look, this messaging from Arteta is pretty spot on. As fans, we naturally want to see goals from our centre-forwards, and when they aren't being backed, it feels like all hell is breaking loose. Truthfully, Arsenal is a better team this season than they were last season. Even with Kai Havertz out injured, Victor Gyokeres and Mikel Merino have both stepped up to plug that gap well, and Arsenal can't really have any complaints about their attack. Mikel Merino is a better goal scorer than Victor Gyokeres, but Gyokeres is a better link-up player than Merino. It's wild that's even the case, but that's a story for another day. If Gyokeres scored double the number of goals, but reduced his involvement with other players on the pitch, Arsenal would be a worse team than they currently are. Like it or lump it, we cannot hide from the facts. Victor Gyokeres is a better player than he's made out to be. Until he starts making his Arsenal teammates worse, which he won't do, let's stop pretending he is a detriment to the team.